Thank you so much for making this drive into San Pedro on a Friday morning. My name is Libby Williams. I am project manager for the Advanced Manufacturing Partnership for Southern California. And welcome to our second Innovation Forum. We are going to focus on the SBIR STTR Phase 1 Proposal Workshop with our wonderful Dr. Marie Talnack as your presenter. So I'm not going to hold us up too long. I just want to go through a couple things. Everyone should have in front of you your agenda packet. On the right-hand side, you'll see all of the PowerPoint and handout information that Marie wanted to make sure that you received. In the front of all that, you'll see a flyer for Space Tech Expo, which is coming up in May in Pasadena, which SoCal will have a booth at. So we want to make sure you are aware of that in case you might want to attend. I know they have free registration for the expo portion. On the left-hand side, you will see the agenda for the morning. And you'll see that I'm going to speak just for a couple minutes. We're going to have Stan Tomczyk, who is the CEO of PortTech LA, come and share with you a little bit about this wonderful facility here. And then he's going to introduce our speaker, Dr. Marie Talnack. And then she has got you for the rest of the morning to go over the workshop proposal. Next thing what you'll see is SoCal. Some of you might not be familiar with SoCal. SoCal is a federally funded program through California, through the Department of Commerce. And we are one of 30, I believe, advanced manufacturing partnerships throughout the country. We here in Southern California have chosen to focus on aerospace and defense because, believe it or not, we are still #1 in the country in terms of aerospace and defense manufacturing. A lot of people don't realize that and know that in terms of both jobs and the number of contracts and awards that we have here in Southern California. However, everyone has gone down. Our goal is to help strengthen aerospace and defense here. And how we do that is by working with all of you to find out what are your needs, what is that is working, what's not. Is it more workforce training you need for your workers? Is it more financing you need? Is it assistance getting money to do more research like SBIR will help you do? Is it more technology advancements that you need to understand how to help your processes and efficiencies within your operations? This is what we want to do is offer our services. We focus on the entire 10-county area, so everything from Santa Barbara all the way down to the border. And we want to also have you guys get involved with us by sharing with us what your needs are. We don't want to just take and make assumptions of what your needs are and what would help strengthen you. So you'll see on the back of the second page, the flyer, you'll see all the partners that are part of SoCal, all the universities, all of the workforce and training providers, and our red carpet business assistants. So we're not just offering workshops, we're also offering one-on-one technical assistance through our partners at California Manufacturing Technology Consulting, through the different economic development corporations throughout all of the counties. So please follow up with us so that we can offer assistance to you. We have an upcoming biannual meeting. It's our first one. It's going to be at the UCI Innovation Center in May, on May 19th. You'll be receiving more information about that. We've got your email now so that you can keep aware of that and other different opportunities that you might want to take advantage of. Lastly, there is a yellow sheet. I ask if at the end of this workshop, if you would be so kind as to just give us feedback. It's anonymous because we'd really like to know what you think so we can improve. Also, I'm really looking to hear from you suggestions for speakers and topics and ideas for our biannual meeting that would interest you. We really want to hear that from you. So without further ado, I am now going to turn it over to Stan Tomczyk from PortTech LA.
Hi, my name's Stan Tomczyk. I'm Executive Director of PortTech Los Angeles. And we are a business commercialization and innovation center. And you can say, well, what does that mean? Well, that means we're kind of an incubator, and we are an incubator, but we're much more than that because we like to work with companies that have kind of taken it to the next level of just out of their garage and off of their workbench and more into the actual marketplace. We're right here next to the Port of Los Angeles. You can see that right in our name, PortTech, and it's because Port Technologies. That's obviously what we're focused on. Our whole intention is to make a greener, cleaner, and more efficient ports right here in the South Bay area. How many of you been to the ports area before? Great, that's excellent. How many of you are entrepreneurs? There's a few that didn't raise your hands. What is it you do?
Workforce development.
Okay, and?
I'm with MCS.
Oh, excellent. Okay. For everyone that's here, we like to have a heartfelt welcome. We work with a lot of entrepreneurs. You can see some of our portfolio clients on the back wall here. The entire intention of what we do at PortTech is to help companies take it from where they've kind of gotten into their research and development phase, and now we want to bring them to the marketplace, connect them with funding and connect them with customers, and bring them forth to create a sustainable business, not only just here at the ports of LA and Long Beach, but ports nationally and worldwide. So clients of ours have installed successfully and have contracts not only here at the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach, but in Oakland, Savannah, Georgia, Houston, New York, Seattle, Hawaii, Puerto Rico, Rotterdam, Italy, and Shanghai. And we're talking with a few of them in India and Singapore right now also. So we're very international. We took 3 of our clients on a mission to China this last fall. It was a transportation-based mission. So I was a keynote speaker at what they called the first annual Global Transportation Clean Vehicle Summit. It was held in Qingdao, which is just down the block a little bit from Shanghai. And it was terrific. We've had a number of contracts that have come from this visit. And all 3 of our clients have gotten offers of both not only funding, but also one of them for a funding of their Chinese operations for them. So these type of things are what we help and try to work with our clients to achieve. Yes?
When do you actually get involved? Is that the genesis stage, or is it like the pre-production or past?
Well, that's one of the things I was just going to bring up. It's an excellent point, because at any given point in time, yes, we have our portfolio clients, but we also have about 80 to 100 companies that we work with on an ongoing basis. Right here is Jim Cooper, is one of our entrepreneurs in residence. We have a director of client services and other resources. We have over 60 volunteer mentors and advisors that we work with on an ongoing basis. So yeah, we want to work with companies from the very beginnings also, because that's our pipeline for future clients. And we want to make sure that we help you, especially if you're saying, well, how do I get my intellectual property protected? You know, we just spent 2 years developing this new whiz-bang gizmo that reduces pollution by 99.9%. And our eyes open big and says, yeah, we'd love to help you. You know, we've got some people that would probably want to talk with you very soon, like this afternoon. So there's a lot of things we do, because you need to get your intellectual property protected. We need to talk about your corporate structure. We need to understand what your business model is, and does it work accordingly with the marketplace that you're looking at, and what is your initial target marketplace, as well as follow-on businesses, so that we can help you create what we refer to as a sustaining, ongoing business. We want you to grow. We want you to create a lot of new positions and technologies, because that's going to create jobs and economic development, which is one of the things that we are graded on here as far as how we produce for the city of Los Angeles and the ports of LA and Long Beach. And most of our funding has come from federal grants administered through the city of Los Angeles, who is our other partner. We've partnered with AMP SoCal. We're one of the founding partners of that organization, and gleefully working with them. Yes, the emphasis is on aerospace and defense, but there's a third component, and that's manufacturing. And this is where PortTech comes in. CMTC is a client of, or actually a partner with us as well. We work with them on a few grants. And this area, Los Angeles Basin, has been the breadbasket of manufacturing for decades. Even with the decline that we're all very familiar with, it still is. We want to keep those resources here. A lot of our companies are setting up advanced manufacturing facilities. One client of ours, Rail Scout, which does rail inspections with an autonomous electric vehicle, which replaces 3 men in a pickup truck with special wheels for the tracks, and does it faster and a lot less expensive, and actually much more comprehensive than what that team does as well. 3 blocks from here. And that was through a California Energy Commission grant. We have some of our clients that have SBIR grants, which we've been partnering with Marie for many years and producing these type of workshops for the last 3 years. We also do some phase 2 workshops of SBIR. I'd like to invite many of you who are successful with your phase 1 to get into the phase 2, which is where the real money of all of this can be. Because there you can be talking about substantially more, in excess of $1 million, approaching $2 million. So without giving up equity. I mean, it's a fabulous program. So we certainly encourage it as much as possible. I'm a member of the Pasadena Angels. Our Director of Client Services is on the Board of Directors of Los Angeles Venture Association. We're very tied in with the funding organizations of Southern California, Northern California, and East Coast. So we want to work with you to see what are the types of needs, what are the resources, what are the concerns and challenges that you have to reach your next level of growth. And that's what we'd like to sit down and talk with any and every one of you and see if there's a way in which we can help build you into the next sustaining business. We'd love to talk with you on that. We'd love to answer any and all of your questions. Any way that we can work with you, we'd love to. And certainly look forward to seeing you all here much more and possibly welcoming you and putting your logo on our back wall here. Anything that I missed, Jim?
I don't think so. I think you covered it all today.
Some of the other events that we do, and I'm sorry that it was just a week ago yesterday, was our Port Tech Expo. We had about 1,000 of our closest friends in and around at a 50,000 square foot facility, which is a 80-year-old repurposed warehouse here at the port. And we had many elected officials speaking and all, as well as many sessions from CSCMP, which some of you might know, which is a logistics council from here, as concurrent sessions. The LA EDC, another partner of ours, had concurrent session with their E4 Mobility collaboration group that met. We had self-driving electric cars that were giving rides to people, electric semi-trucks, which is our clients of ours, which are the only operating electric trucks at the ports and has been for the last few years, as well as over 70 additional exhibits, demonstrations, hands-on at the exhibition hall, including drones flying and things. It's a fabulous, fabulous event, great networking, great contacts, a lot of ports as well as the port-affiliated companies, all there looking at what's the new innovations and technologies. We have other events that are a little bit smaller, such as our workshops, our forums, which are more industry or topic focused, like water runoff technologies, which has become a big issue if we ever get any water runoff, if we get more rain. But air purification, water, because our focuses are like the environment, so it's clean air, clean water, clean land, energy, 4 components, energy generation, energy storage, energy management, and energy quality, the transportation and logistics, anything that moves, and all the software that supports that, because there's a lot of these type of technologies and big data and algorithms and things. One of the demonstrations that Cheetah Software, one of our top sponsors this time, was going through when they were flying their drone inside, was that they can just do a quick flyby over top of all of these stacks of containers and take a complete inventory of everything and do that multiple times a day. So as truck drivers are approaching the port, they'll know where the containers are that they're looking for and be able to make sure that those are sitting there waiting for them so that those drivers can have a quick turnaround, which has been a real challenge for our ports as these larger and larger ships that we're getting here at the ports, the largest of which 18,000 TEUs, which is a 20-foot equivalent, arrived here just at the turn of the year here in January, actually end of December. So we're working directly with the ports to try to help move that along, keep that efficiency happening, and the entire distribution channel, which goes from here up through South Central LA and into the Inland Empire and into every single county in the United States and Canada and Mexico. 43% of everything that's brought into this country goes through these 2 ports right here. And though we have some other great industries here in Southern California, such as the entertainment industry, and we can talk about Silicon Beach and all of that. Well, here we'd like to talk about Silicon Harbor and the fact that we talk about scalability. We think that a 17,000 acre complex sitting here, the largest industrial complex in the United States, Port of LA is number 1, Port of Long Beach is number 2, together in the top handful of ports in the United States, bringing in $1 billion of goods every single day. So if any of you are looking for low-lying fruit opportunities, we do a lot of repurposing of technologies and solutions. We think we have something that we can talk to you about, and hopefully building you into one of our portfolio companies and on to bigger and better a sustaining business that can help your families, yourself. Yes, Jim?
Program.
Oh, yes. During the summer, which accumulates into a finals program in September, we have what we call the PortTech Pitch Program. That's where we bring in a number of companies, usually well over 100 apply, and we do a lot of one-on-one mentoring, advising, and working with you on your business model, your strategic direction, your corporation, your technology, and most importantly, how you present both your technology and your business for funding opportunity and/or marketing opportunities. We spent last year, I think, in excess of 350 hours with each, with all of the companies that participated in that. And it goes through the summer. We actually one-on-one. Some of the companies are located internationally and all, so we Skype them and all in right in this room. Bring you in here and talk with you as much as we can to come up with the finals 10 companies that pitches. Last year and the last few years we've had it at the boardroom here at the Port of Los Angeles, and on to bigger and better. The grand prize winners from 3 years ago was this rail company that I spoke to you about. They, because of their participation in it, actually landed the California Energy Commission grant. Another was Aries, which generates energy with gravity and railroad type of technology. They successfully raised $33 million in growing their company into building a whole facility that's going to be scaled for a utility in Nevada. And our very first winner involvement with this was the electric truck company. They've successfully raised in excess of $40 million in bringing their electric truck technology and storage technologies to the marketplace. So if that's something that seems enticing to you, we'd love to talk with you about that. Anything else, Jim, Marie, that I missed?
Nope.
Wish you all a great day today. Marie's terrific. If there's any questions, Jim will be here participating. I'll be here, but we're just down the hall diagonally across the hallway. Please come in, say hello. We'll be glad to talk more with you. We have some cards and we'll have some information for you on PortTech as well. Welcome, and we look forward to seeing more of you. At this point, I'd like to introduce our presenter today, Marie Talnack. As I mentioned before, Marie's worked with us for a number of years with these programs, and we've known Marie for even more years than that. She's a terrific individual. She's very dedicated to this whole premise of grant and helping companies become involved into entrepreneurism and to grow those into sustaining businesses. To that end, first working a lot with the SBIR program, which she'll get into in more detail in a moment, and helping create a lot of what we see today as far as an SBIR program. But even to that, the expertise that she's gained, she's written 2 books on the subject. SBIR for You, and then followed up, 2 years later? With a second book, SBIR for You squared.
We have AMP SoCal, who's hosting this as one of the innovation forums, and then we have PortTech, which, as he mentioned to you, I've worked with for years. Great organization, here to help you. And why are we doing this today? Well, we're doing this today because both organizations are chartered with supporting entrepreneurship. When you succeed, you've created a success story here in Southern California, and that then means your company has succeeded, it's grown, you add employees, you pay taxes, it's all economic impact. So these 2 organizations, that's their charter, is to help companies. As you heard, AMP SoCal is focused on aerospace and defense, and in particular advanced manufacturing initiatives right now, and we'll talk a little bit more about that. You see I've got some information in your packet on that. And PortTech LA is really chartered with bringing clean technologies and new technologies to the port. So they're hosting you today. So I am your presenter. Let me give you a little bit of background. I always like to know what makes this person standing in front of me an expert on this topic, so let me establish my credibility a little bit with you. Okay, so I have been involved with the SBIR and STTR program for some 30 years, ever since it began. And I have noticed in my career that I've participated in different parts of it, so I've seen different aspects of it. I have started out my career when I was at the University of New Mexico, the Technology Innovation Program. We started off that program at the university to support entrepreneurship just about the time that the SBIR programs were being created. So I literally grew up with the program. So what I will share with you today is a basic understanding of why has the government created these programs, what do they want out of it, how do you successfully compete in these programs to get grants and contracts from them, what agencies participate, and what is their particular focus, because there's a lot of differences among the 11 different agencies that participate in it, and how you can tap into what Stan was talking about just a moment ago, a government grant and contract program that simply wants you to go out and take technology, develop it to the next stage. Today we're talking about phase 1 feasibility, prove feasibility of this, and launch your business. What does the government get out of that? So when we do these workshops, and I've done many here, I've done hundreds across the country, but I've done many here for Port Tech. There's two things I'd like to bring to your attention about Port Tech. First of all, unlike other organizations who have done the SBIR and STTR workshops, Port Tech is here. Once you attend the workshop, they're here with one-on-one consulting for free to move you to the next steps and to answer the rest of your questions. So you're not just here to take a workshop today, they're here to also provide consulting services for you. Jim Cooper has helped companies, Stan and John are here to help companies. So your next follow-up step, if you're really interested in this program, is to contact them and they'll work you through the next steps of this. So they support your company, one-on-one consulting, okay? And the other aspect of the SBIR and STTR programs is that you will get out of it exactly what you put into it. So even if you're not successful with your first proposal, which later on you'll find out is typically the case, you've made contacts with Port Tech, you've made contacts in AMP SoCal that can lead to other things, and you should be doing all of this simultaneously, because one of the things you will hear from me today is keep trying, keep pushing it, because persistence is the number1 success factor in starting a business. And I know I've started several of them myself, so I've been where you are, okay? But that's not where I am today. So let me give you my bio quickly and then we'll move into the aspects of the program. So I am currently Director of Technology Transfer and Industry Clinic at Cal Poly Pomona University. That's a state university. There's 23 of these state universities in the state of California. They're spread out all throughout the state, and I'm up in Pomona at Cal Poly Pomona. I've also had my own consulting business where I helped companies to write grants and to, more importantly, not just write the grant, but to commercialize it, move you through the stages of it. So I've helped companies to move from the phase 1s to the phase 2 to the phase 3s to a venture deal to launching businesses. And I do have former clients of mine here in Southern California that have 350 some odd employees and have been successful for very many years, and they were sitting right there where you are today. So that's what I hope to share with you today, is how do you get there? So how did I get involved with the SBIR program to begin with? Well, as a young graduate student at the University of New Mexico in our TIP program, there was this legislation that was going through called Bayh-Dole, if any of you are familiar with it. It was federal legislation that said universities can take the technologies in their portfolios, the technologies that they develop if they're a public university, they can take those and license it back out to industry, small businesses, large businesses. So Bayh-Dole was passed in the early 80s. A complementary piece of legislation that went with Baugh-Doyle was to allow federal laboratories to do the same thing. And I've worked for federal laboratories, so I was involved with universities licensing their technology out to industry, and also federal labs to license their technologies out to industry. But most small businesses have great difficulty licensing early stage technology that's been developed at federal labs or universities and then knowing how to commercialize it. It's very early stage, it hasn't been proven. And so this program that you're going to learn about today really started during that same early 1980s initiative when we were passing legislation in this country to create jobs out of early stage technologies at universities and federal labs. This program was developed by the National Science Foundation at about this same time, and it was developed as a pilot program. National Science Foundation is this country's technology transfer, technology commercialization agency, you know. So they have a wide spectrum of technologies that they like to support at universities and with small businesses and industry. Unlike some of the other federal agencies we're going to talk about today, they are more broad in perspective. Some of the other agencies like Department of Defense or Department of Energy focus on a particular type of technology they want to see developed. But National Science Foundation is fairly broad. So back in the early 80s, they ran this as a pilot program, and I was very fortunate that in my position at the University of New Mexico, we were very much involved with National Science Foundation when they were developing this. So I got to learn what was then a pilot program and have watched over 30 years this grow, 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 grow. Because other agencies saw the success that the National Science Foundation had with this program and replicated it. So National Science Foundation started this as a pilot. And because it was a pilot program, and because it was NSF, and because of the people who were initially involved with this, the format in this grant program, this proposal you're going to work on, is very, very different than what you'll see in typical grant applications and technical proposals. It's very much of a hybrid mix between a business plan and a technical proposal. And so I work with faculty who will come into me and say to me, I've been doing grants for years in my career and I've never seen anything like this. This looks different. And it looks different because of the way it was conceptualized from the very beginning. So today what I hope to cover with you is to get you oriented into this program. Because when you look at it and you download, let's say for example you Google SBIR and you Google a particular agency and you pull up the grant application package, it's going to look very complex, it's going to look very confusing, and it's going to look like I don't know where to start. You know that feeling of, wow, okay, this is more than I thought it was going to be. So you have an opportunity today to sort of get oriented to it and understand when you download that package why it looks the way it does and what it's asking you to do. Because, you know, it started as a fairly simple application process, started off with a fairly simple format. And it's become more and more complex. And of course, you know, all the government attorneys had to write in all that boilerplate, which for you as small businesses makes your head spin. You go, I don't know what that means. Okay. So what we want to do today is to give you an overview of it. And as Stan was talking to you a few minutes ago, we also do, today is the phase one, so we're going to give you an overview of the phase one, the first step in these program. And then we also do phase two and phase three workshops, which once you're in the program, helps you to understand how to move to the next phase of the program. So let me just start off, you know a little bit about me. Let me ask you a little bit about you. How many in here today are small businesses? Raise your hand. Okay. Now, how many of you are university faculty or in a economic development agency or some kind of nonprofit organization? Okay. And how many of you are just individual entrepreneurs on your own thinking about starting a business or having already launched it? Okay. This is the typical mix. So I have different people who, different reasons for you being here, and I'll try to cover it a little bit of it for all of you so that you all walk away saying, I got something out of it today, okay? Yeah.
Is there a better structure for these types of grants, like to be a 501c? Or
Yeah, so we're going to cover what the eligibility requirements are to participate in the program. And you'll see that even though we're a little shorter in time, because we normally do this as a full day, we're still going to cover a lot of highlights. And it's a lot of information, okay? So feel free to take notes, but also during the break, feel free to come up and ask me individual questions about your company. Because one of the things I've noticed in the workshops is you will ask individual situations, and sometimes that bogs down the momentum of the workshop. And as I mentioned to you, I'm available for you if you want to ask questions after today's workshop, as well as Port Tech and AMP for SoCal partnership. The first program, as I mentioned to you, was developed as a pilot by the National Science Foundation. And National Science Foundation ran this pilot program for several years. And they had a tremendous success story with it. They looked at this and they said, if we give small businesses just a little bit of grant money to work on a technology and figure out how to commercialize it, we get tremendous results. They go out with their companies and they move it to the next stage, and they hire people and they generate investment capital, and they commercialize the technology, and they're licensing it out or they're making product with it. And so when they would fund the small businesses, they would do follow-up and find out how the companies are doing. And they would look at the results and they'd go, this is amazing. We only gave you, and back in those days, a phase one was $50,000. We only gave you $50,000 for 6 months, and look what you've been able to accomplish. If we give $50,000 to a nonprofit organization or to a large company, we get nothing, practically nothing back. The results that small businesses come up with so little support is just astounding. So it was what helped transition NSF from the pilot program to running it as a full-scale program was the success of small business owners who just needed a little hand up, just a little bit of money and a little bit of time and a lot of credibility, being able to say, my project is funded by the National Science Foundation. Small businesses are so entrepreneurial that that's all they needed was a little bit of help. So National Science Foundation started having all of these amazing results with their program. And so Congress took a look at it and said, we'd like to replicate this with other agencies. If you're running grants programs for research, why don't you have this program as well? And a lot of the other agencies said, well, we have grant programs, research grant programs already. Why do we need this special program just for small businesses? Can't they just send in their grants along with everybody else? National Science Foundation figured out that what small businesses needed was what we call a level playing field. When small businesses have to write a research proposal and send it in to compete with large corporations who have large staffs to prepare grants and have a lot more valuable resources at their disposal, small businesses weren't competitive. So they weren't winning grants from NIH. They weren't winning grants from Department of Defense. This program was set up as what we call a level playing ground program. So what that means for you is only small businesses can compete in this program. The only companies that can submit a proposal is the small business itself. And so there's some eligibility requirements about what constitutes a small business. So underneath this Small Business Innovation Research Program, a small business is legally the definition that the SBA, Small Business Administration, uses. You have to be less than 500 employees. Everybody chuckles when I say that, okay? Because you're thinking in your head, when I asked you earlier to raise your hand, you're thinking, I got 2 guys and maybe we'll add a 3rd one, okay? Actually, in the SBIR program, what we find is what I call a dumbbell effect. The companies that win successfully in this program typically have less than 10 employees. And then on the other end, they have almost past this legal limit of 500. There's a lot of winners in it that have 300, 350 employees. What's going on there? They start off in the beginning with less than 10 employees. And as they grow through the program over years and different projects, they get large enough that they're almost at the max of this program. Okay? So that's actually a success story, because you can see how they're going from phase 1, less than 10 employees, to about the time that they're ready to graduate this program and no longer eligible, they're exceeding the maximum. So that's actually a success story for small businesses. So less than 500 employees, I think most of you will be able to meet that requirement. Innovation, let's talk about innovation. You must have a unique approach to your proposal, what you're proposing to them. And you have to be able to do research, actually conduct the research. So the small business is the prime on the grant. They're the ones submitting. So if you take these terms, these first few bullets here, it explains what the title of the program says, what it is. You must be a small business. You must be able to conduct innovation, come up with innovative ideas, and to actually conduct the research yourself. SBIR, right? That's why it's titled that. These are the requirements of the program. So, just because you are the small business and you are the applicant to this, doesn't mean you can't partner with others. And one of the things we're going to talk about today is partnering, and who you partner with. But when I say you are the applicant, that means you submit the proposal to the agency, you will receive the money, and then it is your responsibility to divvy up any other money to whom else would be your partners. Universities, consulting firms, whomever is your partners. So you have an identity to the funding agency, and you have a fiscal responsibility to carry out the research. So the projects don't get funded. Let's say you partner with University ABC and Corporation XYZ. The small business is who the agency only corresponds with, okay? You're their grantee, okay? So as I mentioned to you, when they started off with this program at NSF and it had such tremendous success stories, really Congress said to the other large federal agencies, you need to have a program just like this. And so it was mandated a few years later. And so now there are 11 participating agencies, okay? All of the big agencies that you know about, Department of Defense, National Institutes of Health, National Science Foundation, Department of Energy. We have a list in your packet along with when they have their dates open for their proposals and the due dates. That's in your packet, okay? So now you've got 11 agencies running this program. So there is no one SBIR program. There's 11 agencies all running their own SBIR program. And remember when I said to you a moment ago that the agencies, some of them were a little resistant at first, and Congress wanted them to have this. They wanted to support small businesses and entrepreneurship. One of the ways Congress worked it out with the 11 agencies, some of which were a little resistant at first, was we are going to give you autonomy to structure your agency's SBIR program the way you want to. There's some simple guidelines given to them. I mean, the agencies have to have a basic structure that looks like an SBIR program and follows the requirements. But they're allowed to modify it in a way that fits their particular mission. So what does that mean? That means Department of Defense will have its own due dates, it will have its own topics, it will have its own rules, it will have its own proposal package with its own format. So there's no one SBIR program. There's 11 agencies running an SBIR program that is fit for the way that they do it. So the DoD guys don't care how Department of Energy is running their program or how NSF is running their program. This is the way we do it at DoD. And in fact, it gets down to this. DoD is an umbrella agency which has 9 different sub-agencies in it. What I say to people is, I said, you know, there's a different uniform and different color for each one of the agencies. So the Army runs theirs, and the Navy runs theirs, and the ballistic missile systems, for example, runs theirs. And so they have different dates, they have different topics, they have different program managers. So there's a lot of diversity, a lot of differences throughout these different agencies. So let me explain this to you, to you this way. A couple of years ago when I was over here at Port Tech, we were doing a workshop, I asked this one company that was sitting on the back row, it was like 6 guys all working for the same company. I said, I know your firm, you've won many SBIRs. What are you doing in this workshop? And they said, well, we're going after a different agency. We don't know anything about how to work with them. So it is difficult and complex to kind of get your head wrapped around. What we're going to do today is cover the basics, the common themes that you should see within all of the different agencies. So the SBIR program was very successful. It was launched in 8, 9, 10 agencies, 11 agencies. They all started picking it up. And this was in the 80s and 90s. And then NSF, who originally started the SBIR program, because they do so much work funding research at universities, they were probably the first agency to sort of experience this. But what they were doing is they were getting proposals from university researchers who were sending in small business proposals. And they said, well, you have to have a small business. Oh yeah, I set up a small business. I'm working on my garage. And they said, well, who owns this research? And they said, well, I do. And they said, no, technically your university owns it. So NSF had a problem. They had university faculty that were starting up their own small businesses, and NSF wanted to keep a good relationship with the universities. So what do you do when you're in the government? You form a spin-off program. So the next program we're going to talk about, I said they were sisters, is the Small Business Technology Transfer Program, which came along about 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years after the SBIR program. The key distinction between the two programs is in the SBI Technology Transfer Program, the university or federal research center, like a national laboratory, is the inventor of the technology. They developed it. They're going to license it out to you. They're going to work on further developing it with you and license it back to a small business. So the two programs are mirrors of each other. In the Small Business Innovation Research Program, the small business developed the initial technology, owns it, and now they can partner, if they so choose, it's not a requirement, with a university or a national laboratory or anybody else that they want to partner with. In the case of the STTR program, the university or federal lab developed the initial technology with public taxpayer dollars, and they're going to partner with a small business, like yourself, to commercialize it, to further develop it and commercialize it. So 2 mirror images of the same program. The STTR program has fewer agencies. There's only about 5 or 6 agencies that participate in it, and it's the largest ones, Department of Defense, National Institutes of Health. They will have STTR programs. Sometimes the two programs will have, in some of the agencies, will have the same due dates. Sometimes the agency said, we want to do SBIR this time of year, and another time of year we'll take STTR proposals. So you got to watch for that distinction. So when I do the phase 1 workshops, I very seldom get companies that fit the STTR program. When I go out and I do a similar type of workshop and I'm talking to university faculty or federal lab employees, they're more interested in the tech transfer program than the SBIR program. So it's all about who initially developed the technology and who will commercialize it. That's the distinction in the two programs. So because the programs are different, there's not only differences in the format and who owns the intellectual property, but in what is the purpose of the programs. So most of the day we're going to talk about the SBIR program because that's going to be the program you're going to want to apply to probably. In the SBIR program, I gave you a little bit of field a few minutes ago about why did the government agencies want to do this. They wanted to support small business and they wanted to create success stories. I could tell you right now, probably 20, 25 large firms that you know that started off in the SBIR program. Because when you start off there, you have the way that this program is set up, Stan alluded to it. It is money for research, so the government doesn't take any equity in your business. It doesn't keep any intellectual property rights. It simply wants you to do good research, and then you move it in the private sector along to the next stage of development. How many places can you go get money to prove the concept of your technology works without having to pay back a loan or give up equity or have to have some other kind of restraints on you? So it is basically a program that will give you a small amount of money with no strings attached, really. Okay, I mean, I know that when you read through your contract, you go, okay, I'm not supposed to do this with it. Why would I do that? Anyway, so I mean, it has some basic rules like, you know, you can't go to, you can't have your product manufactured in a country that's a known terrorist country, okay? Things like that. But they're basic rules, okay? You go shopping for that early stage seed money, and you talk to venture capitalists, or you go to your banker, it's going to take, it creates a burden on your business, right? Now, if you're successful, that's okay. That's what you needed at the time. But this is burden-free. The government isn't going to take your intellectual property rights. It's not going to make you pay back this money. It's not going to make you give up equity or give you know, some program manager back in Washington, D.C. a seat on your board, right, to control your company. Mm-hmm.
Are these usually 100% grants or are they 50-50 contributions?
Oh, a match? No, no match. I'm glad you brought that up. No, there's no matching funds to these. So you don't have to come up with money on it. So this sounds like a really good deal, and it is. And that is why the grants have become so competitive, okay? It gets more and more difficult and more complex because as the word gets out about these programs, more and more companies submit proposals all the time. So when we were first starting with this program back in the early 80s, and I was doing an internship at NSF, they used to tell me, we don't want anybody to know about this program. Because then we'd have to hire more staff, and we don't have money for more staff. So here's what we want to do. We want to promote this program, but not too much. So the word now is out, and it is too much. So, you know, it is hard to be competitive in this program. And what I'm hoping you work on today, and you really think about deeply, is how do I create a proposal that will get funded by being very innovative, by partnering with the right kinds of people, and by understanding what the agency wants out of this, okay? So this is the section that we talk about today about who is your target audience. And as I said, there's different agencies, and so you'll submit proposals to different agencies. But you need to know, really know, who is the audience at this particular agency that I want to fund me, and what do they want out of this? You know, here's an analogy, and I've been guilty of this myself, okay? If you write a resume and you send it out to all different types, you know, of organizations you want to get a job to, you've written such a generic resume that nobody offers you a job, right? Well, it's the same thing with this. You're going to have to tailor your proposal to exactly what that agency is interested in funding. If you send them in a generic proposal, if all you do is change the title on it and resubmit to a different agency, it's not going to be specific enough for the evaluators who are reviewing proposals to really be interested in it. So I know this sounds like I'm being contradictory, but here's your success. Here's how you get successful in this program. You write a generic proposal, and then you modify it each time you see a topic that you're interested in and an agency that you're interested in. So you've got one generic proposal, and if you read my book, this is what I'm telling you to do. You've got this one generic proposal, and every time you see an opportunity, you do your research on that particular agency, that particular topic, and you modify your generic proposal. If you've got to write an entirely new proposal each time you see a topic come out, you'll never be able to send off enough of them that the odds will work in your favor, okay? So, and one of the things that we're seeing is the agencies, from the time they release the topic until the time that they have a due date and evaluate it, the windows are getting shorter and shorter. So right now, from the time an agency releases a topic and says, hey, we're taking proposals on this, to the time the due date is typically around 6 weeks. Yes, Jim, did you have a question?
Yeah, I did. So wouldn't the budgets change significantly though based on the topic?
Yes. The budgets change, your partners change, your focus on it changes. But there are some things that you can keep as your generic proposal. For example, every one of the formats, I know they differ from agency to agency, wants to know about your small business. They want to know what stage of development you're in. They want to know who the founders are, what are their experience, what is their resume. So those kinds of pieces of information you should have pulled together in your generic proposal at all times. So when I was in the grant writing business and I'd have clients, I would say to them, don't expect to be funded, and I had a good hit record. I knew what I was doing. Don't expect to be funded until about your fourth one. That's typically what I saw. About it took you about 4 times to get a hit. And I screened my clients to make sure that they were going to fit this program, okay? If you're just doing this randomly, I know companies who've called me on the carpet and go, all right, we're at our 10th one and we still haven't won. What are we doing wrong? And that's why they come to the workshops, okay? So, and usually it's simple things that you as a small business owner wouldn't think would be an issue because you're not looking at it from their perspective, okay? So what I hope to share with you today is I've been I've been on with the evaluators, especially when I'm brought in to evaluate the commercial potential on something. And so I hope to share with you today what is their perspective, what are they looking for. It wasn't that you didn't write a good quality proposal or that you didn't have a good idea. Just don't understand who is my target audience. So I think one of the other things in the program you need to understand is that there are 2 types of funding mechanisms that they can use. And it depends from agency to agency how they want to do it. One is contracts and one is grants. What is the difference? From your funding agency's perspective, a huge difference. You are small business. You go, I don't care which mechanism they send me a contract or they send me a grant. I got the money and I'm off and running, right? But for them, it's very important, and it should be important for you too. If you are being funded by an agency that has a broader perspective on why they're funding research, they will typically use a grant mechanism. Some of the agencies, remember I said a minute ago, all the agencies were allowed to develop this to fit their own missions, right? Some of the agencies want very specific deliverables, and so they will use a contract. So let me give you an example. NSF, remember I described NSF as their mission for this country is to fund good research, innovative research. And in this particular program, to fund good research that can be commercialized. Who commercializes it? Well, you, the small business. Who's your partner in it, and who are you going to sell this to? NSF really doesn't care. They're funding good research. Department of Defense uses this program as basically a procurement program. They said, our topic says you will develop a black box. It will look like this. It will meet the specifications to fit it into our F-18 fighter plane to do this. Okay? They want a deliverable. They want something at the end, not just good a research report, but they want you to deliver something to them, to manufacture, to prototype it, and it fits their specifications. And so they will use a contract. Because if you don't deliver it to them, you are in default of a contract, okay? So some of the agencies are looking to fund broad-based research, and some on the other end of the spectrum use this program to do very specific research that moves their technology platform to the next level, okay? If you looked at two topics, and when I usually do the more expansive workshop, I show examples of topics. NSF might say, for example, we'd like creative and interesting ideas on how to use nanotechnologies. What we understand, the problems right now with companies adopting nanotechnology are the following. So come up with some creative ideas. And at the end of your funded project, you give them a research report of what you found. Department of Defense will say, I need a nanotechnology solution to do this. And at the end of the contract, we want you to have built a prototype of this. And we'll come out with our DoD guys and we'll make sure that that works, okay? So contracts versus grants, okay? A lot of different ways to work in the SBIR program with different agencies. What are they looking for? They're looking for getting their needs met. If you're working with DoD or you're even working with Department of Energy, they write these topics because they need small businesses to give them ideas. What they're looking for is you to be a success story. I have known and hung out with program managers who will say, man, I've got a really good portfolio right now. I've funded 17 companies and they're all doing this, 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 so I look good, okay? If you fail, you've made that program manager fail, okay? So they're looking for companies that have really unique ideas, really know the path to commercialization, what that means, and have put together really good teams, high quality teams. They really don't want to fund guys in the garage, okay? Because the odds are you're not going to be competitive compared to those other proposals they're getting in from others who are saying, we've got team A is from University XYZ, and then we got a guy over at the federal lab. I mean, if you look at the awards database, now maybe you guys don't do this, but you know what? When I can't go to sleep at night, I pull this up on my computer and I take a look at it and I go, here's what everybody's doing, right? They're partnering with universities, they're partnering with federal labs. They've got this expert over here as a consultant, okay? They're putting together really competitive proposals. So that's what they're looking for. These agencies need a small business funded project so they can check off, yep, we had some small businesses work on the F-18, and they came up with something really innovative that the prime contractors would never have thought about. And that's what they're looking for. How do they write these topics? That's something that the small businesses need to sort of absorb. How do they write these topics? Well, I haven't worked for the government in several years, but here's how we used to do it. If you didn't come to the meeting, your job was to write the topic, okay? So you may not necessarily be, all kidding aside, you may be assigned the program manager for a number of topics, but you may not be an expert in that. So, you'll say, well, our initiative right now is we need to be looking at these critical technologies. They have committees that write up reports to them about what critical technologies we need to be supporting right now that we'll need. So, for example, what are the critical technologies right now? And this is something that you need to sort of get your, if it's mine, forget it.
It is mine. It must be one of those,
The wind.
I sat on it. I must have sat on
It
it.
was the wind.
No, well, no.
So
I must have sat on it.
the agencies will have periodic
Sorry,
meetings,
folks.
and those meetings are convened to say, what does Department of Defense, what kind of technologies do we need over, let's say, the next 9 years, the next 10 years? So they do projections of what are the critical technologies. And then from those committee reports, they go back and form specific topics, okay? So they've mapped out what they need. Your job is to understand what it is that they're going to fund. Not what you're working on, not your idea, what they're going to fund. So let's say, for example, right now, they would be looking at, if you're Department of Defense, they're looking at things like big data analytics, okay? Cybersecurity, putting things up in the cloud, getting rid of analog and legacy systems and upgrading to mobile apps, okay? A few years back, I remember being at a meeting with a general, and he was telling me, he goes, I got to get the DOD out of the dark ages. They won't let me give a soldier a cell phone with mobile apps on it. Yet, every one of my guys have got their own personal ones they're walking around with, okay? And they can get more information off of their personal cell phone than the government issued one. So agencies will identify problems, and then they look at what technologies are out there to solve their problems. They write comprehensive technology forecast reports. Those end up being sent over to the SBIR program managers saying, are any of these things that small businesses could come up with ideas on? And that's how the topics get written. And that's what you have to find, is a topic that fits what you know how to do. Not necessarily your product idea, because here's the number one weakness that I see in company proposals. When I'm an evaluator, I see this, or when people show me their proposals and say, how did this not win? You start off talking about what you know how to do, and will you give me money, government agency, will you give money for my idea that I'm going to build a business around? That's not how they look at it. This is procurement, okay? You read and understand what it is that we want to do, and then we'll give you money to do it so that we meet our needs, okay? I have literally seen proposals from companies where they took their business plan and sent it in. where they took their sales brochures and attached it to the forms, okay? I worked for the government. We're not interested in what product you make. If you go out and you take this technology that we needed, remember, we're not retaining any intellectual property rights to it, and you take it and you make a product out of it, we'll call you up and we'll put you in our magazine, okay? And we'll invite you to conferences to talk about how you did that, okay? But we don't care what you're going to make out of it, all right? So this is all about understanding their needs. So how do you find out what they're interested in, right? I told you they're creating these reports. Go on to the agency's website. Look for their strategic plan. Look for their roadmap. Look for these reports that say, what we've identified we need to do is big data analytics, UAVs, unmanned aerial vehicles, medical technologies, these types of things, okay? Look at what their reports are saying. And in your proposal, cite those reports, right? Because the odds are whoever wrote that big report is on the evaluation committee for the proposals, right? Okay, you're done. You can go. You're all finished. You're successful. No, seriously, that's a very important tip. So when I did grant writing, I spent a lot of time looking for what is it the agencies want, who's the experts in it. So when companies would call me up and they'd say, you know, we want you to do a proposal with us, I said, what you're buying is what's already in my head, okay? What's already in my head is who's the experts in these fields and what are they writing about and what are they saying that they need. And so you need to do that too. You need to look at what is their needs and how do they translate those needs into a topic and then make the selection as to which projects we're going to fund. So the other key element that they're looking for is you have to be able to understand what their needs are. You have to come up with a unique solution, and then you have to put together a really good team. They really don't believe, I mean, think about this. If you're Department of Defense, they really don't believe 2 guys in a garage can do this. But the good thing about the SBIR program is that they will actually allow you to use your budget to go find those teams and to pay them underneath this, right? So why not do that? Why not partner with university faculty who are experts in this? Why not go partner with the researchers at the national labs? It doesn't cost you anything. And this is how small businesses manage to create this ecosystem around them, this network that started off with one project and then builds to an entire company or bigger projects, more money to do more things and to create new products that they can patent and license out. Is they're establishing relationships through this initial proposal process. So you've positioned your solution to their needs, you've put together a really high quality team, you've come up with an innovative idea, and you start off the beginning of the proposal with, we understand who you are, we understand what you want, and here's what we're going to give you. Not, here's my really great idea that I was thinking about while I was in the shower, and I want to make this and sell this on, you know, QVC, okay? That's not what they're looking for. So I hope I'm clear on that. Now, you will see some topics out there that are what we call open topics, miscellaneous topics. It'll say, for example, just send us in your good ideas. Bad idea to spend your time and resources, because I know they're limited, on going after these topics, because it's rare that I ever have met anyone who's funded underneath that. And I'll tell you why. There's no money attached to that particular topic. This is the government. They allocate so much money for this topic, so much money to fund that topic, so much money for this one. And if they end their list of topics with, and if you have any other good ideas, send us, you'd have to have a really spectacular idea because there's no money attached to that. So I have been known, don't spread this, I've been known to write a winning proposal in one day with a lot of coffee. Okay, go to my office, plug into the computer at 6 o'clock in the morning and finish at 6. How do I do that? Because I already have in my head what needs to be said about this. I already know the theme, I already know the audience, I already know what I want to say. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit later here about the actual writing process and how you get your head wrapped around it and how do you approach the writing process. And I will tell you, I don't do it starting off with their format and going from A to Z. I don't think I've ever written one that starts with the first, in other words, I don't write the first paragraph the first thing, okay? I jump to what I do know and build from that. So I was saying to you earlier, this is the team approach. You want to partner, partner, partner. It is rare that I see what I call an individual person proposal, a two-man proposal get funded. This is the way it's going, okay? So you can have the small business in the SBIR program is the lead. Then underneath the funding structure, they can use universities, federal labs, corporate partners, subcontractors, consultants, whomever they want to put onto the team, okay? In a phase one, 2/3 of what the government calls the scope of work, which is really the budget. Okay, 2/3 of the budget has to go to the small business, and then 1/3 is allowed for all your other partners. So on a phase one, you can't have a whole lot of partners. But the good news is if you get funded on the phase one for 6 months, you get to move into phase two. And on phase two, you can split this 50-50 pretty much, okay? So when you're approaching partners, they may say, there's not enough money in this for us on a phase one. And your response is, well, first of all, it's 6 months. It's only a 6-month project. But more importantly, there'll be more for you in the phase two. And that's really the way that they want you to work. They don't, on a phase one, they want most of the work to be done by the small business. Why? Because they want qualified small businesses, not small businesses that don't really know how to do the research, but they just go find people that do, okay? So they keep that requirement of 2/3 of the work must be performed by the small business. Here's a project timeline here. Let's say that you're submitting your proposal 6 weeks from today. It will start here at time 0. So you've got 3 to 6 months of a phase one to get your work done. Then you'll have a final report. That's your deliverable at the end of the 6 months. Some I have here that sometimes you submit your final report, and then you usually will get paid your last and final payment once they approve your final report, okay? And that can take anywhere from 1 month to 6 months. So sometimes you're left waiting for that last and final payment until they've approved your report, okay? And then I mentioned to you, once you've completed phase one, you can go into a phase two, which is 2 years, and it's further development of the prototype or the proof of concept that you proposed in phase one. So this is a quick timeline. Now, I usually get the question, you guys haven't done this morning, I usually get the question always from small businesses, can I just start off at phase two? No. This is a progressive program, so you start off in phase one and then you would graduate to phase two. So this is a timeline, and you can see that the other part of this program that you need to be aware of as a small business is, we said you don't have to do a cash match, you don't give up equity, but you have to keep your firm alive while you're waiting for them to review proposals, get back to you with an award letter. Maybe if it's a contract, you have to do some contract negotiations. You have to wait for your final payment. Then you've got a big gap between the time you submit your phase two proposal until your phase two starts, if it does start. So you really can't afford to be completely dependent upon this program. And they never intended it to be so. In fact, years ago when I ran a program for the State Economic Development Agency, the program that I ran was if, and not all states have this, I was very fortunate where I was, if you won a phase one, the state would match you dollar for dollar with money to commercialize it. And the reason why we did that was to keep the local firms that we wanted to support alive while they're waiting for this money to come through. So when I would survey the companies out in the state that had won SBIRs, on average, 40% of their funding comes from SBIR. That means 60% is coming from bank loans, coming from their own equity, self-financed, whatever. So this is not a program where you should be dependent upon the federal government for this. I point that out to you. You got to stay alive while all of this timeline is working through. Jim, did you have a question?
More of a statement, really. The phase two portion, the way I understand it at least, is that for the phase two proportion, it's mainly for commercialization. So
Yes.
once you have your idea and your proof of concept, you go through the commercialization phase, which then requires you to write a commercialization plan, which is about 15 pages, and you also are assigned a principal advisor on that commercialization. So there are tools that the various government agencies actually give you, either through their project managers or through an advisory group that's attached to that. So they try and make it easy for you once you get your first SBIR, particularly the phase one. They want you to get a phase two.
Yes. Yes. And usually the other question I get, because I know the 6 basic questions that workshops ask me. One is, can I just skip over phase one and go to phase two? That's usually asked. Here's the other one, and that is the question of how much communication can I have with the agency? So there are some barriers, and if you've participated in this program before, you probably are aware, there are some barriers. But I do find that the agencies, as we've progressed 30 years with this program, they have become much more educated about what small businesses need and have come up with tools to help you. I mean, when we started this program, you threw your proposal into the FedEx package, mailed it back there to them, and you didn't hear anything for 6 months, okay? They're much more progressive now about understanding what the tools are and understanding the commercialization process and making things available to you, okay? We've done this same workshop here at Port Tech a few times, and we've actually had the program managers call in and do a Skype in to us and do presentations about what is their perspective of how to support you, okay? So there are some barriers about what you can't communicate with them and at what stage, but once you're in the program, they're there to help you. And so the typical question I also get is, what are my odds of getting a phase two? And the odds nationally is that typically, and it varies by agency, but typically if you win a phase one, you've got a 50-50 chance of winning a phase two. When you look at the odds of the first phase one, your first entry into the program, it's typically 1 in 25, okay? Some agencies more difficult than that. So once you're in, and they want to make you successful. The problem is, how do you get in? And that's why you're here today, okay? So they are supportive of you. So let me talk a little bit about planning for the submission process and also talking to the agency, because that was one of the things we mentioned. So let's say you see a topic, you know what is the due date, okay? I don't mean to mislead you when I said I've written them in one day. You don't want to do that, okay? I don't want to do that. So I generally, like I was saying to you earlier, the windows used to be wider from the time they announced a topic to the due date used to be 60, sometimes 90 days. Now we're seeing narrower windows, only 6 weeks. But also on the other hand, some of the agencies, back in the old days, only 1 or 2 agencies would ever have what we call multiple solicitations throughout the year. Most of the agencies only had one time of the year you could send in a proposal. So even though the windows are getting shorter in terms of from the time they come out with a topic to the time that the due date is, many of the agencies now are having multiple dates throughout the year that you can send them proposals. So if you miss one, you can still participate in another one. That does not necessarily mean they run the same topics. So if you see a topic, jump in, okay? And jump in quickly. And that's why it's good to have that generic proposal that you can at least get started with, okay? So that you're not starting from scratch. But generally, I allow 6 weeks. It's a 6 weeks frame. Now, I said to you earlier, you want to partner, partner, partner. But there's parts of this proposal that your partners have to provide. They have to propose their own scope of work. They have to give you their budget. And they have to give you letters, okay, stating what they're going to do. That seems to be the biggest barrier in your timeline, okay? So I always start off with who's going to be my partners and getting my partners working on what they're supposed to do so that while they're working on what they're supposed to do on the project, I can move forward each and every day on what I have to do for my part of it, right? So I like to find my partners, get them started, because invariably they won't get that letter to you till the day before the due date. That's just the way partners are, because they're busy doing other things. And especially if you have large partners who are universities or prime contractors, it can be a very slow process. They might have to move it through internally for their approval process. So I like to sort of give them their assignments and get started with actually working on the proposal. So you look at the topic and you go, okay, this is something I want to do. Now, in your packet, I have for you a handout here. I have several handouts for you. This one right here, the first one, ways to find a fit for your technology, right? There are some of the agencies, and I've got a couple of examples right here, of before the due date, the types of communication or information you can gather. So for example, Department of Defense is very good at this. Department of Defense says, you can talk, you see a topic, and at the bottom of that topic, it'll give you the program manager's name. It'll be Lieutenant Colonel Henry Jones. Email him at this, okay? So you can contact them. So what the Department of Defense does is they say, we do a pre-solicitation. That means before the topic is actually released, we'll give you a heads up of what the general topics will be, and you can call us during that pre-solicitation period and talk to us about what your idea is. Sort of vet it to us, right? Once that pre-solicitation period is over with, the topic becomes what we call hot on the street, and you cannot talk to us anymore. So the pre-solicitation period is generally within Department of Defense, generally 30 days in advance of when the topic goes live, okay? So you got a 30-day window that you could call them and discuss it, because it's not an official topic yet. Why then do they say after this particular date you can't talk to us? Because they don't want to be in a situation where one of their people gave some information to Russ and Mark didn't get that information, okay? So because it is a competition, they have to make sure that everybody gets access to the same information, okay? So the pre-solicitation period, you can talk and have a conversation with them. Once the topic goes live and it's official, no more communication with them because they want to make sure that everybody got access to the same information for the competition. That being said, what Department of Defense does, which is really nice, is they have this site called CITUS, S-I-T-I-S, and I gave you a handout on CITUS in here. What CITUS does, it's on the back of it, she did the back, okay. What CITUS is for any topic, you go to this website and for any topic that's out there, you can post a question and they will get back to you on the website and answer your question. So you get answers to your question by using CITUS, okay? It's free, open access, right? Guess what else you get to see? Everybody else's questions, right? So you can start to figure out, oh, okay. So, you know, here's the thing. What if you log in and there's no questions? Or there's only one question? Maybe not too much competition on that. What if you log in and you see a lot of activity going on? You go, I don't know. There might be a lot of competition on that topic. Or there might be things in the thread of conversation on CITUS that help stimulate your idea for it. I actually know situations where companies figure out who each other are and say, instead of you going after it and me going after it, how about if we partner? Okay? So CITUS is where you get answers from the agencies to your specific questions after the topic goes live. Okay? So it's a great website for you. So there's information on CITUS, but also I noticed lately that the National Science Foundation says, their manager over there, who's, by the way, a great guy, says, you can call me, okay? Call and talk to me. So different agencies have different rules about this. And when you go to the national conferences or you attend workshops like this, you get a lot of information as well. One of the things that I always like to suggest to companies is, even before you do a proposal and you send in your specific ideas, like this gentleman here, this program manager from National Science Foundation, you can send them a 1 to 2 page abstract of your idea. Say, what do you think about this? And they'll give you feedback on it. It's not a full proposal. It's not, you're not in competition, but you can just send them a little abstract, right? Because calling them on the phone, they're busy and it's hard to catch them. Remember, there's a lot of time zone difference between California and Washington, D.C. So sending them an abstract to their email is an interesting way too. One of the things I like to do, if I am going to ask them a question, there's certain things that you just shouldn't ask them. Like you shouldn't ask them, what are my odds before I go in to this, okay? Or, hey, can you give me more money than what's in this topic? I mean, there's a lot of questions that as government officials, we can't answer those for you. But you can ask them, remember how I was talking about just earlier? Where do I find information? I can't find that strategic plan. Did you do a plan on big data analytics? Can you reference that to me? Because sometimes they'll have it posted on their websites, but it's buried on it, right? And so the program manager can be a great source of resource. And program managers are relieved because you're not asking them anything that they can't answer. They can just simply send it to you, okay? And they go, yeah, we did a study a couple of years ago, and here's how you get to it, okay? So those are the kinds of questions. But when you ask them specifics that have to do with things that would put you in a better position, let me phrase it to you this way, would put you in a better position vis-a-vis another company, they're not allowed to discuss that with you, and rightly so. So that's talking to the agency. I talked a little bit about putting together the whole team and how you get your team members started on their projects while you're doing yours. And then pulling it all together. So you've looked at this topic, you've talked to the agency, you've got your partner and your teams together, and they're working on their parts of the project. How do you pull it all together, especially when you're looking at probably less than 6 weeks to put it all together? Well, I gave you a little checklist here. And on this checklist, this is one I developed and I've used for years. Clients of mine know this by heart, and they also know I don't get started on any project until we have some good X's over here, okay? So we got to have some things to get started with. These are sort of the general requirements, the documents and things you're going to need to put together your proposal. And I do this in 2 columns. We still need it, and here's what's completed, right? And so this is a good tool for you to keep track on your proposal, but it's also good to send over to your partners and say, you know, I still haven't gotten that letter of support from you. I still haven't gotten, you know, what have you, okay? So I give you a checklist here that helps you to sort of pull it together. You know, Jim brought up a moment ago about commercialization. So, you know, the agencies, when they started this program, they said, we don't need to know what your ideas for how to commercialize this are. But guess what? You know, they've fallen under more scrutiny, and they've taken more of an interest in it. So it used to be back in the old days with this program, all you had to do is put in like, you know, 2-3 sentences that says, you know, if you fund us for this, we think the market for this will be, you know, silicone chip production. And that was all they needed to know. But now they have much more stringent requirements in their proposal format about discussing what the commercial applications will be. As Jim mentioned, when you do a phase 2 proposal, you've got to have a full commercialization plan. That's not required in your commercialization section of your proposal, because these proposals on phase 1 are very short. I mean, the requirement is you can't go past 25 pages. But some agencies don't count resumes, some do, some don't count letters of support, some do. So basically you're looking at about 17 pages, okay? So when you get to the commercialization discussion in a phase 1 proposal, you just need to briefly give them, I mean, I rarely do more than a page, okay? To kind of give you a heads up. Rarely more than a page. But so you don't have a lot of space in your proposal to address this, but it is scored and it is important. So you got to be very succinct, okay? So these are the kind of key things that I cover in the commercialization section, the 1 page to 1.5 page. What would be the industry application for this technology, and how does the industry work? Is it a large industry? Is it a small? Is it an industry that's changing a lot and it's constantly dynamic? Or is this something in tooling where, you know, they're basically doing this the same way they've been doing it for 20 years, but what we're proposing will change that. A little bit of analysis on what is the market, what are the trends in the market, what's the size of the market, how is it growing, what are the changes occurring, both technically and also organizationally in the marketplace. What is your firm's position in the industry, okay? If you're a small business, you feel like, well, I don't have a position. What they're looking for is how hard is it for a small business to break into this industry? If it's being controlled by a couple of large firms, you know, that's different than if it's, you know, open source coding, okay, where, you know, there's really no barriers. So they view the barriers for a small startup with a software idea very differently than a small business startup that's going into the aerospace industry and competing with, you know, all the primes, okay? So what is your company's position in the industry, and also who are the key players in the industry? Thus, if you've got somebody who's worked for a key player in the industry as a consultant on your project or is partnering with you, you can see how all of this that we've been discussing this morning in the proposal builds upon itself to create credibility for your project, right? Proprietary position, by that I mean, have you got patents already? As a small business, you might already have some patents on the technology, or are you planning on licensing it? Or will your partners bring their patented technology to the project, right? Again, they look at you and say, that's an interesting idea. Yes, it fits what we need. but why this particular company? See, that's what you got to do is you got to go from, when you're writing the proposal, from the big idea of, here's our idea, it's really innovative, we know you need it, and here's how you need it. You need it for this to do these things, your projects, F-18s or whatever. And then we're the right firm to do this, because look at what we've got. We've got an innovative idea, we've got the right partners, we've done our research on you and know what you need, right? And we're going to do it in 6 months, and we're going to do it for $150,000. And some program managers looking at that going, if they can do it, fine, okay, I'll give them a chance, right? And then your transition plans to the next stage of the commercialization process. So a lot of these, because so many of the topics are really early stage proof of concept, they want to sort of see how, if you did get phase 2 money, what would you do? Okay, you don't have to detail it all, but give them an inkling of it, okay? So, I mentioned to you earlier, I don't start with, this section A when I write, or section B, especially if I'm up against time, because not all sections are evaluated the same. The most important section, the heart of the proposal, is the aims and the work plan. This is worth more points than any other section, because this answers the question I just outlined for you. Here's our innovative idea. Here's how we know you're going to use it. We're the right firm for you, and here's how we're going to do it. So you start getting into the details here, okay? And it's usually, like I said, the agencies have different formats, but it's usually called the work plan, and it's usually in the middle of the proposal, okay? Which I suspect that the reason why they put it in the middle is because you've done the narrative up front, and now it makes sense to then providing how you will do it, the specific tasks, the specific money, the specific partners. But I also suspect, being an evaluator, that it makes the evaluators actually get to page 13. Because if you didn't do a good job on your introduction of setting the pace and the tone in your proposal, I haven't got time to read the rest of it. So I've been an evaluator, I've sat in my hotel room, and I have 17 proposals to read tonight, because I had a long flight to Washington, and the committee meets tomorrow morning, and I am not going to read every page of your proposal. Actually, I should say that. I usually do, right? She knows I do. But most evaluators will read through the first few pages and already get a feel for how credible your proposal is. So one of the things we're going to talk about is how you front load your proposal, okay? So it's very much, it's very critical to do the front loading, but once you've front loaded the proposal and you've sold them on it, this is the section where they know how you're going to do it and who's going to do what pieces of it. So you define the project objectives, the roles of all your team members. Remember, we talked earlier this morning, what will be the deliverables, which you're actually going to give them back, and the time frame for each one of the project pieces, and the budgets, okay? That's what they're asking you to do here. They're saying, I read through the first part, and I'm on the fence. It's sounding pretty good. Now tell me the details of how you're going to do it. So this is the heart of the proposal, and it's worth more points than all the other sections. So you want to make sure that you spend, in your 6 weeks time frame of preparing the proposal, you want to make sure you allow enough time for this. Because if you don't get this right, it's kind of like pinball. If you don't get this one right, you're not going to get enough points in the other sections to make up for weaknesses in this. And as evaluators, most of the time when they send you back their negative comments, the reason why they didn't fund you is because this was not detailed enough. And they had questions here, okay? So how do I get started besides the fact, like I told you, sometimes I put it off to the last minute and go, okay, I'm just going to crank this out in one day, okay? As I said, I don't suggest that. How do you get started? We're going to cover how to get started, the format and the subsections, the abstract, the first 2 key pages, okay? As I said to you, I don't necessarily start on the first thing first section, okay? I jump around. So remember when we were talking about that generic proposal? When I write a proposal, I work it like I do a puzzle. I put in what I know first. And what I don't know, I leave till later because hopefully I will know it by then, all right? So I start off with what I already know. I already know that the section that says, what is your company? How long have you been in business? What's your position in the industry? I already know that because I know my business, right? So I start with that first. What is the market in the industry? You guys already know what that is, right? So you fill in that section. And then you keep working backwards until you've finished answering all the questions. And then remember I said to you the first 2 pages are critical because they may not read past that. Then I take the editor, whether it's myself or in your case your team, right? And you have one person who starts to look through the proposal just before you're finished. Usually if it's due on Friday, I do this on Monday or Tuesday, okay? A couple of days before it's due. And I go through and I look at that proposal and I highlight the most important sentences, the most important things I said in there. And I take it and I rewrite my first 2 pages. I want to make sure on the first 2 pages, all the most important things that I wanted to communicate are on those first 2 pages. Now, I may not write the first 2 pages. I write a draft of it, but I don't finalize it until I've finalized in my head what I want, okay? And here's the thing. If you don't make all your salient points there, there's no guarantee that they're going to pick it up on page 13 or page 15. Evaluators will send out comments back to the small business. And the small business will call me up and go, but we did say that. We said it on page 14. See, 3rd paragraph, 4th sentence. Why didn't the evaluator pick that up? So once you start to get your proposal semi-gelled, go back and say, what? Set it aside. Look at it again with new eyes. You know, I usually will do this on a first thing in the morning when I'm freshest, you know, and I'll look at it and I'll go, okay, let's go through it. What are the key points? Pull out those key points and make sure that those are in the first 2 pages, right? This, an SBIR proposal should not read like a mystery novel where you don't find out who done it until the very end, okay? Evaluators don't read mystery novels. I've asked them, okay? They want to know who done it on page 1 and who's going to do each piece of it, okay? And who's your partners, all right? So if you've gotten really good partners, don't bury it until the section 8, that says who are your partners. Bring that front and forward. Plug it into your executive summary in the front, right? If your strength is, oh, we've already gotten 3 patents in this, don't wait to just discuss it when you've got it in section F on page 18. Bring it front and forward also, okay? So they give you a little leeway in that front end, that narrative. How you use it is up to you. If you just start writing the narrative, like I said, that is a description of your business, you're losing valuable time with those evaluators, okay? So pull out all your strengths and move those to the front end.
I'd just like to reiterate and reinforce what Maria's saying. Maria and I have written SBIR grants, and one of the things is that abstract is so critically important. The last 3 rejections for an SBIR grant that I got back from evaluators, their evaluation of the proposals that I helped write for my clients, were that the technology was not innovative enough. So it's super critical that you hit all the target points in that abstract, because if you don't, you will invariably come across that same issue. Now, I was obviously, you know, if you get someone to write it for you, so in my case, the difficulty for me was that I was being told what that innovation was by my client. So I really couldn't work outside the bounds, even though I tried to get them to work outside the bounds. The other thing is I can't afford to be too esoteric about how you're describing your technology. You know, you've got to make it sound like, I don't know, like
It's ready to be manufactured tomorrow.
Yeah, like a 3-year-old could explain
Oh, yes.
exactly what
But
your technology
here's what I always tell people. Here's one of my insider tips when I write, okay? In the narrative, the front end, I told you it's important that you cover all your key best features, okay? Your beauty pageant contestant, okay? You don't tell them that you've got, you know, bunions on your feet, okay? Or bad hearing in one ear, okay? If you've got negative parts of your business, that's not, you don't put it in there on the front end, okay? So what you want to do is you want to present yourself with your best strengths in the beginning. Okay, but on the other hand, please, and I'm serious about this, do not lie. Do not misrepresent. Because if you get blacklisted in this program, you will never get in again, okay? So don't misrepresent anything, but present yourself in the best possible case. All right, but here's the other thing. I think it's really important that small businesses understand from the government's perspective, what you think may be a strength is not necessarily how they view the strength. They're looking for solid R&D strengths, not who your customers are, not what trade shows you went to, what trade associations you belong to. So think about, it's the nitty-gritty, how am I going to convince you that we actually know how to do the research and the idea is incredibly innovative. As Jim was saying, it's hard to understand from their perspective what they view as innovative. So you got to tell the story on that. What is one thing that is really good is, I kind of briefly mentioned this earlier, letters of support, okay? So letters of support might be from a Port Tech. It might be from a Northrop Grumman, who's not a partner on this. It might be, if you're in a biomedical device, it might be from a doctor, okay? And what the letters do is they tell the evaluators, this is innovative. So you might have a team of doctors as evaluators, but they're working at NIH. They haven't seen patients in years. If you have a letter from a doctor who's in that field and he said, my patients really need this, that can influence the committees, okay? If you've had an evaluation of your technology done by a university or a Port Tech or a prime contractor, you competed in something, and those letters state that, the agencies can be swayed by, hey, this is something. So the proposal asks for specific information. The letters of support say, this confirms that others see this as innovative. So your letters of support can be very important, okay? And as I mentioned to you earlier, some agencies will limit the number of letters because if you left it open, they'd have 25 of them, especially when they say, we don't count it in the page count. So, 2 to 3 really solid letters. If you've worked with another company and they've seen the progress that you've made or they see merit in what you're doing, get a letter from them on their letterhead and include that in the package. Jim, did you have any other comments on how to verify your innovation?
I do lots and lots of research. So not just I do real market research. Don't just get a generic report off the shelf. Just actually find someone who does market research for a living. Actually go out there and get that, even if it's secondary information, secondary sources. Just go out and do it. I would definitely find key people within industries to poll, talk to them, poll them, write it, make a little matrix, a chart, and have specific questions that you want to ask them, and who you spoke to and what they said, and really, really, really get a good understanding of broadly what your industry actually wants.
Credibility. You have to establish credibility here.
What audience do you poll?
Your industry audience.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I mean, these ultimately feed into the commercialization portion of the SBIR. So, you know, you want to have a good, strong and solid commercialization process, a plan in place long before you actually even apply for the phase 2. So, you know, I would look at these things, well, I mean, I'm much more conservative. I'd prefer a company to look at an SBIR grant 2 years out rather than, you know, oh, there's one in 6 months, let's apply. You know, I'd much rather have a company look at it from that perspective.
Yeah.
And then that means that that's, for your phase 2, that means it puts you out for another 18 months after that. So, you know, you're looking at a 5-year process. This is not something that you should just think about. I've got real issues, my personal real issues with serial SBIR grantees who never get out of the lab.
Yeah. Or as I tell people, when you, we were talking earlier about once you're in the program, you're in, and it's a long-term process. If you add up your phase 1, the gap between your phase 1 and your phase 2, a phase 2, and then moving through commercialization, it's a 5-6 year process. You just got married to the agency. You weren't dating, okay? You married them. You got to make the relationship work, even though they may be temperamental at times, okay? And they may be moody, because you're also going to deal, if you're looking at 5 years, your program manager is going to change. The person who was processing that paperwork is going to change. You've got to manage this process and own it, okay? So, and here's another thing that because we're coming up on 11 o'clock, we're getting to the budget part, so I'm going to let you break early here, because when we come back, we start on the budget. But, and during the break, please feel free to ask questions and to network with each other on this. But if you look at this as a long-term process, and only 40% on average of your funding is going to come from this program, even though now you're in the program and you've got a commitment to it. You've got to raise money for those other pieces. So when I work with companies, the good news is, I call a client and I go, the good news is you got funded. The bad news is you got funded, okay? So you've got this commitment. You've got an obligation in the future, okay? But in the meantime, you're going to do 99 other things to keep your business going, to keep it alive. You've got to do licensing. You've got to go find venture capital. You've got to go find industry partners. You're going to have to run your business and grow your business while you've got this obligation sitting here, okay? So I don't know if there's other people out there that would ever do this, but if you know me, you would know I would do this. I've told my clients sometimes, I don't think you should accept the award. I don't think you should do this. Because, for example, sometimes, and this is true of the investment community, sometimes we'll have submitted a proposal, we haven't heard anything back, and in the meantime, investors are standing by. And now all of a sudden, we got a deal on the table. And investors don't want you to have this 5-year obligation. They may want you to go into a different market application. They may not want you to do the paperwork on this and to get involved with it. So there are times when, for example, I've advised to a client, I know you want it and that's all exciting, but maybe this isn't right for you right now. Do you want to take $4.5 million from an investor, or wait for the agency to give you 3 equal payments of $150,000, okay? And tie up all your time, especially because like we were talking about, oftentimes you're just a 2-man, 3-man, or 1 man and his wife company, okay? So you have to weigh the obligations of the program. It's a great program, but sometimes your company's moving faster than the government is on this, is just the reality of what has happened. Because if you really truly have something innovative, not only is the government interested, but so is the private sector as well. So I've had situations where, we said, don't think we even want to go after the phase 2. Well, let's just finish up the phase 1 and get it done and move on. One of the things that I think is really dynamic now is there's so many funding sources. I mean, it's not just going to VCs. That was sort of the old day. Now there's Kickstarter. There's so many other ways to finance your business. Also, I think that right now there's so many pitches. I mean, there's business plan pitches everywhere. And by the way, if you do win a pitch, that's a good letter or a good piece of information to put in your proposal as well. So the program isn't for everybody, and it's not for every company at every stage of their development. But still, even when we had an investor lined up, we'd look at it and go, okay, the investor wants 49% of the company, and he's going to give you $200,000, or we take the SBIR money, $150,000, no equity given up. So, it's a business decision. I'm going to let you guys take a break. We'll reconvene at 11. Help yourself. There's still coffee over here. Network, share your business cards, and we'll come back and talk about the budget. And I'll give you a heads up. It's not as hard as you think. We've been talking about partnering today. AMP SoCal, led by the Center for Economic Development at USC, and also part of the Price School of Policy and Planning, of which I'm an alum. Hey, Trojans, through the brackets. What are you laughing at? Yeah, I know. I just heard.
I just read it in the paper.
I watched it. It was heartbreaking.
Anyway, they're great partners, and they really want to help you with your business by bringing in different workshops like this one, and as Libby was mentioning to you, ideas of other topics that you might want to hear about. The other thing is, and Libby is a great contact for this, is to get involved with the AMP SoCal and serve on the committees. This is how you're making your connections, because guess who else is on the committee? University researchers, corporations, okay? So if you don't participate, you don't have that network going, and we've talked today about how important the network is. AMP SoCal, it stands for Advanced Manufacturing Partnership of Southern California. And while we were talking to you earlier today about it being focused on aerospace and defense, it's really advanced manufacturing. It's federally designated partnership. And so what I did for you is I put together here just some of the advanced manufacturing topics that are out right now by the different agencies. So in particular, these would be good topics if you fit that advanced manufacturing profile, or just to read through them and see what's out there. Because one of the things that helps me when I'm writing a proposal is I keep in contact with what are the agencies looking for, but also what are the big technology themes? What are the big policy themes? What are the big economic themes that are going on right now? And when I develop a theme around a proposal, it really helps me to tell a compelling story. Again, like we were talking about, I can write a whole proposal and then I go back to the first 2 pages and create this narrative, because you've got to catch the reader. It's like anything else. You've got to catch the reader at the very beginning that makes them want to read more. Reading 17, 20 proposals late at night is not a fun thing to do, okay? So what you want to do is you want to make your reader feel like, oh, this is really cool. This is what I want. I want to read this, okay? So by tying your proposal idea to a theme, compelling theme, it does 2 things. Well, actually 3 things that I told you. It helps you in your writing to create a compelling story. It reminds the evaluators of the importance of your piece of technology to a bigger picture. And it also helps you when you're trying to find partners to remind them that, you're your technology is part of is a piece out of a bigger picture here. So, for example, I'll give you a couple of examples here, just off the top of my head, that'll maybe help make the point. We talked about cybersecurity is a big issue right now, all right? Cybersecurity is part of national security and counterterrorism, okay? And so if you do something, if you've got a piece of technology, a small piece of technology that helps play into that, helps contribute to that, then that's your theme. So one of the themes that I look for, and where do I find my themes? Is I look at the press. I look at what's happening, okay? Counterterrorism is an issue, okay? Aviation safety. We've lost some big planes out there and nobody can seem to find them. So if you're developing something that has to do with black boxes, okay, you tie it into that theme. So look at what's happening globally and nationally to find your themes. If you're a woman-owned technology-based business, that is an interesting theme, okay? That can influence evaluators. If, for example, you are a small business, but you're also very involved with educational programs, right? STEM or something like that, that's an important theme. So look at, and I really advise this if you're working on biomedical technology, really play into, you know, what is happening with healthcare issues. Will your technology reduce healthcare costs? Will it take information, patient information, and make it more secure? What is happening in the trends in different medical technologies? So find a compelling theme. It helps you to have some kind of grounding on your grant, but again, in the very beginning, your narrative, it helps sort of set the tone and remind the evaluators that this is, what you're proposing is very important. Because sometimes when you get down into the minutia of how your technology works, if they don't find that that connects to something that's important to them, remember we started off this whole conversation with know your target agency, right? And what they need. So themes are important to helping you sort of create that compelling narrative. Okay, so I promised you I was going to cover the budget. Now, when you download your SBIR package, you're going to have a budget form, a government budget form. Have any of you in here tried to fill out one of these budget forms? Mm-hmm. Fun, huh? You don't know what the heck they're asking for. You go, I never saw anything like this. Guess what that form is? That's the same form that the big prime contractors fill out, okay? And that the universities fill out. They don't have a different form for this small business program than any other of their grant programs, okay? It's the same generic government form. We have asked Congress so many times, are there some of these reporting requirements or budget requirements that could be eliminated or reduced for small businesses? Because this is not putting them on a level playing field, as we were talking about earlier, okay? It's difficult. That's not going to change. The accounting people at the government agencies are used to this one form, and that's what they're going to work with. So you look at that, and it's scary. And it's a lot of pages with a lot of headings, and you don't know what this means. So I'm going to tell you the good news. You don't have to fill out every line. If you don't know what it means, it probably isn't relevant to your project, okay? So when it asks you, the line says summer stipends for graduate students, you don't have to fill that in because you don't have any summer stipends for any summer graduate students, right? So not all of those lines will relate, budget categories will relate to your project. Mm-hmm.
But when asked for summer students stipends, do I have to put a student's name in there? Or I just say I'm allocating X amount for that student.
If you really do have one,
I don't have one yet.
then don't fill it out. Okay? So it's not mandatory.
But I
to
will
fill-
have, I just don't have the name of
Oh.
who I'm gonna recruit.
No, then you don't need to put a specific student's name. Okay. 6-month project, only $150,000. Not much money, not much time. It will take you longer to fill out the form. Okay, so on average, most SBIR projects are 80% man hours. Okay? Because you're doing research and it's a short period of time. So you don't get the grad students, you don't have too many partners, okay? A phase 1 is very short period of time, very small dollar amount, very research intensive. You're not buying materials, you're not buying equipment, you're not leasing equipment, okay? You're not setting up a new office because that's not covered in the cost anyway. So, you know, it's very straightforward. How many men or women? There's man hours, but nobody ever refers to woman hours. How many people on the project? How much is their their hourly rate, and how much man hours went into it? That's mostly what an SBIR Phase 1 budget is. So there's 3 cost categories that you really need to pay attention to in a Phase 1 SBIR. First is direct labor. Second, direct materials. And third, your external partners, the subcontractors and consultants. They didn't give me a flip chart. I usually use a flip chart for this part of it. So I'll walk you through it. So you look at these forms and you go, where do I start? Start with what you know, right? What do you know already? Before you even start on your budget, what do you know? If the maximum is $150,000, you already know your total budget, right? It's going to be $149,967,000 or something somewhere around that, okay? There's no benefit to leaving money on the table still, okay? This is not a situation, unlike other government programs, where you get any benefit for being the lowest bidder. So if you look at your maximum budget and you go, okay, to start my first draft of my budget, let's just plug that in and let's work back upwards, okay? So you know your total already, which is the opposite way you normally do budgets, where you find that out last, right? So plug in what you already know. You already know what the maximum is. What else do you already know? Maximum for all your partners on a Phase 1 is 1/3. 1/3 of the total tells you I fill that in for my partners. Okay? So you already have the total. You have 1/3 accounted for. Now, let's go up, because we're working backwards. We're moving up from the bottom up. So we have the bottom of the total. Then we have 1/3 will be our consultants and subcontractors and partners. Next category, direct materials. How much materials do you really have on a Phase 1? You're doing research, so you don't have much. But you may have some supplies and some direct materials, and you already will know those numbers because you'll look at it and say, okay, I went to my scope of work and I'm going to need 2 rolls of, Mylar, and I'm going to need this and I'm going to need that. So you pretty much can scope out in your mind what are going to be your materials, right? So now all you're left is to fill in the direct labors, right? Which is your company's employees, okay? So you look at it and you go, all right. And this is what I tell small businesses that have never been in this program before. We're doing a first draft of a budget. You can refine this when you get more details. But right now you're just drafting this, okay? You know what your annual salary is. And about this time, most small business owners go 0, okay? That's you? Okay. All right. Here's a good way to look at it. What were you making at your last relevant job? Well, I was making, and let's just do this for round numbers, I was making $100,000. Okay, 6 months is half of an annual salary. So put me down for half of an annual salary, right? Okay, so now you're starting to get a draft of this. Now, let's see. That's how many, for my annual salary, that's how many man hours a year? Mm-hmm.
28. 2,080.
Yeah.
Take 40 times.
So
52.
you break it down into what is how many man hours for 6 months, right? Mm-hmm. Now you know your hour. You can backtrack into your hourly rate and approximately how many man hours. And then if you're going to put not only you in the company, but maybe your partner Joe, you do the same thing for them, right? So you basically only got a few cost categories. You've got direct labor, which is your labor, not your contractors, not your consultants, not all external. Remember, the dollar award will go to your company. So from your company, you've got man hours times an hourly rate, and that will give you an extension. It'll give you a dollar amount, right? Then you've got a category on there. Okay, there's your salary of benefits, right? The government allows you to pay yourself benefits underneath this. So you're going to look at typically, let's say, 25% of your salary would go towards benefits, right? So you finished up your section. The next section was materials. We said most of you guys pretty much know what your materials are. And then you got the maximum you're going to pay your partners, and you got your total. Done. I've never in my entire career seen anybody map out a budget the way I just did for you. I've seen people get up here and go through line item and line item of filling out the government form, and it's confusing, okay? But that's all you really have in this project. I'm not telling you to take a shortcut. I'm not telling you how to do it incorrectly. I'm telling you this is a very simple, straightforward project. That's what the government wants. It wants you to do things in a very short, sweet, straightforward way, because they're evaluating you in phase 1 to see if you're qualified to move to phase 2. Now, phase 2, the budgets get much more complex. You have a lot more partners. You've got commercialization plans. But that's another workshop. What you're doing in phase 1 is proving the concept, and you're proving that your company can be a government contractor. If you don't know how to fill out the forms, if you don't know how to fill out the report, if you don't deliver anything, they don't want you, okay? So yes, they're testing the technology, but they're also testing your company, right? To see if you can do this. I can't tell you how many companies have contacted me over the years saying, were we supposed to give them a final report? We don't know why we haven't heard anything on our phase 2 proposal. I will swear to you, I was sitting in a workshop a couple of years ago, and there were 2 ladies sitting there. And when I got to that point, they looked at each other and went, that's us. We were supposed to do a final report? Yes, that's your deliverable. Read your contract. And they got up and left the room to go check on it and call back at their offices. So seriously, I mean, there are 2 things that they're testing here. Your technology, but also, are you capable of being an awardee? And grooming you for, if you thought you saw the paperwork now, wait till you see what hits you in phase 2, okay? So it's not an easy process, but this approach to it, fill in what you do know, go back to what you don't know, and begin to fill in the gaps. So you filled out the budget.
Is there a magic percentage for fringe benefits or?
No, no. When I say there's no magic, Once you have been funded underneath this program or other federal programs, they will assign a rate for you, and you must use that rate. But usually in these workshops, I get a lot of companies that are brand new to the process, and so there is no direct rate yet established for them. They will have to establish it. And that's part of what you do in phase one, is in phase one, if you do have an office, and if you do have administrative staff, and if you do have insurance coverage, and you do have to have a security alarm system for your building, those kinds of things, you'll be building that. And so typically the rate that you would charge in your phase one is lower than in phase two because you're building your business as you go along, right? You have more business-related costs because your company is becoming more complex working on this project.
So let's say you start with some percentage. Do you have to deliver paperwork, receipts afterwards to show what you...
Oh yes, that's all part of the final process. So we talked about the budget. So you've got the narrative, which is the proposal itself that we talked about this morning, which starts off with a compelling story, and then goes from, as Jim was talking about, when I write the narrative with a compelling story, I write it in such a way in the beginning that I was presenting this technology to a science class in the 10th grade. By the time I get to the middle of the proposal, the heart of the proposal, where I am detailing exactly how I'm going to do this, I've now ramped up the technical discussion, the science, to the level that I expect the evaluators to be at, the PhD level, okay? Don't start hitting them in the very first 2 pages with the technology and a complex discussion of the science. Build with a narrative, and then by the time you get to the middle of the proposal where you're talking about the details, you should be definitely outlining the science, okay? So we talked about, there's the narrative, there's the heart of the proposal, there's the commercial description and who is the management team and what is your company about, and the market trends, the market growth, the key players in the market. You put this whole package together. I mentioned to you that different agencies have different formats, so you might find this section over here, and it might be called Section F. In another agency, it's going to be called Section C, so it'll move around, it'll sound a little bit different, but these are pretty much the standards of what you're going to see. So we talked about the budget. So you've got the narrative, you've got that detailed scope of work with the timelines and the tasks and the timelines and who's going to do what. You've got the resumes of your key players. You've got the market description. You've got the letters of support we talked about. You've got the budget. You've got a package, okay? You got the checklist to follow that I gave you here of what items should be in it. And now you're ready to hit the submission button. And I forgot to tell you one thing that I always start off with. We talked about how it takes 6 weeks to do all this. Before you do anything, if you are not registered in the government's database as a contractor, it can take you longer than your 6 weeks here. So if you're not registered today and you are serious about this program, go and get registered in the database, okay? Because if you start working on your proposal and you forget about that, it won't get approved in time for you to submit. I see this so many times. And when you do go to submit, if it doesn't see you in their database or the information is incorrect, it will not accept your proposal. You did everything for 6 weeks for nothing.
Also, you need a DUNS number in some cases.
Yeah. So you need a taxpayer ID number, you need a DUNS number, you need to be in their contractor's database.
So you're referring to SAM? As far
Yes,
as
SAM. SAM.gov. So when you do finally submit your package, if you're not in there or there are errors in it, it will not accept your package. Now, in the old days, here's how we did it. We took our packages, our proposals, and we made whatever the agency called for, 15 hard copies, 25 pages each, stapled them, put them in the mail, sent them through FedEx to get there in time, and that was stressful. But at least then, I didn't immediately find out my package is incomplete, okay? So I could take a few weeks and with hope think that the package went through okay. But here, with the electronic submission package, you know immediately whether it went through or not. When it accepts your package, it will give you a tracking number. Write your tracking number down like you would a password on a computer for you, okay? You need to hang on to it because everything is based on that tracking number, okay? And with some of the agencies, you can actually pull up that tracking number and it'll tell you your status of your project. NIH will do that. National Institutes of Health will do it. Other agencies won't. It just depends. And not all agencies have you electronically submit through the same site. So some agencies use grants.gov. Some agencies use, like NIH, use their own NIH fast track system. Some, like National Science Foundation, have their own system, FastLane. And some agencies say, just send it to us directly. So check in your application package to see what system you have to log into and make sure you're cleared on that first things first. So that's why I have up here plan ahead, okay? If you submit through grants.gov, I will tell you it is a large master government grant database. The day that the proposals are due, it is crowded with everybody else, and you can run out of time because literally the pipeline for the electronic data gets crowded, and we see that all the time. So you don't make it by the deadline. So you have to plan ahead on that. Some of the agencies want to be more customer responsive to you, and they've realized that there's problems with using that big grants.gov. So they'll say, you can send it directly to us on our website. DoD will do that. So check and see what your electronic submission process is, okay? So I will tell you, I'm a great writer. I am not a great electronic submission person, okay? Because when something doesn't work, I go, ah! Now, my husband's a computer guy, and he can remain very calm and go, what you do is, here's a workaround, okay? But the writer in me goes, what do you mean? It won't take it. And I don't know what all the electronic workarounds are. So sometimes the systems will get clogged. Sometimes there's something in your package it doesn't like. And I'll give you an example. Diagrams and charts, sometimes it doesn't like those, or it doesn't look to the viewer like what you expect it to look like. I've known situations where charts got cut off or data wasn't. So double check those diagrams and stuff before you hit that submit button, okay? Like send it to somebody else and say, when you're looking at it on your computer, does it look like what you thought it would be, you know? And an evaluator might get it and go, this chart doesn't make any sense, so they don't give you any credit for it. So double check those things.
Is PDF pretty safe?
Well, you know, most of the agencies, they want a PDF file. But even in PDF, it can sometimes move a chart or cut off data, depending on how you. So it's always a good idea to send it to somebody else, you know, a couple days in advance and say, take a look at this. Is this looking normal to you? And for you to view it yourself, okay? I think the number one mistake that I see sometimes on this is you change your company name or you change your company address and it doesn't fit with theirs. And that's why you want to go, once you're assigned your SAMS number, you want to go look at your profile and make sure you're updating it, because you do not want to find this out at the last minute, because you'll go, oh, yeah. We moved 2 doors down. We're in the same building, but it was suite 103, and now we're in 108. Big deal. But if it doesn't fit exactly, so look at your profile in SAMS and make sure you make those edit changes. And sometimes, and they won't change it like 2 minutes before you submit the proposal, okay? So you have to plan ahead on this. The other thing with uploading your proposal is, especially like I said, if you go through grants.gov, which can get clogged, is make sure that you're uploading in sections. So some sites, like NSF is pretty good about doing this, and NIH as well. You can go in and upload a section, and it will store it for you, so you don't have to do them all at once. So when you get one section done, you can store it, and then log back in and upload other sections, okay? So you don't have to do it all at once. So if it gives you the option to do that, I usually like to log in and load my sections that are completed so that I'm not trying to do it all at once. Resumes. When I had my consulting business, I had one person full-time just on resumes because we found out we needed that, all right? So here you have partners, and they're over at another organization. They're at a university, they're at a federal lab, they're at another corporation. You ask them, okay, on the checklist, I need your resume. Can you send it over to me? And they don't get it to you, and they don't get it to you. And it comes in at the last minute, and it's 15 pages. Okay? And you're an hour before it's due, okay? So get started on, that's why I was telling you earlier, ask your partners for their information early on. And so if you're working with university faculty, they may have an entire career listed on their CVs, but you can't put 15-page CV into a 17-page proposal. So, and if you ask them to cut it, you're cutting parts of their life away, so it's painful for them, okay? So I had one gal whose job it was she was very well trained on what's important, what isn't important. And what's important is their most recent publications, their most recent research on this topic, okay? Not on all the other stuff they've done. So don't insult them, but do let them know that there is usually a 1-page, 2-page limit on the CVs. That is one thing that will get you into trouble. The other is your bibliography. Bibliography, especially if you download bibliography from a website, like you went to some site, it may have different font in it, different size font. And again, when you're at the last minute, when you're trying to incorporate that into your proposal, that can cause problems for you, electronic problems for you. So outside information you've pulled from another location and then cut and paste into your proposal document is usually what causes those last minute errors on it. You'll look at it and go, that's where the problem is.
The NIH has a form called BioSketch. Is that the same thing as a resume? So,
yeah.
Okay.
The BioSketch is, they got wise and decided we'll just tell you, fill in this 1 page, okay? Because, some of the agencies would say, in the beginning would say, well, we don't count in your page count resumes. And then they got 17-page CVs. So they went to their own format, the BioSketch, yeah. So you sort of learn what are the typical problems when you're hitting that submission button and you're getting an error, but it's only natural then to become anxious, and you have to sit there and go, now what would be causing problems? Usually external data that you've pulled in, it will cause the problem. Or like I said, somehow your profile in the government database isn't fitting with their information. But it's always good to have somebody, a buddy you can call at 11:30 at night and go, what's a good workaround for this? Because I've got 30 minutes before it's due at midnight. Oh, by the way, also, when you first get your proposal application package, look at what the due date is on it. It may say Eastern Standard Time. When you hit that electronic submission and you're trying to upload this, it will lock you out. If you are 1 minute after, it will lock you out. If you're 1 minute before, oh, everything's wonderful, everything's rosy. 1 minute after, so make sure you're using an atomic clock, which happened to me one time. And the other is make sure that you look at the due date and the due time. Department of Defense loves to do that to people. I could not, was it Department of Defense? I could not believe I did this because I really and truly have a track record. I've never missed a due date. And the first one I missed ever in my life, I was so frustrated with. I was helping, it was a proposal for my husband's own company. And I kept telling him, this never happens to me. They had 6 a.m. and I thought, they never have proposals due at 6 a.m. I thought it was supposed to be 6 p.m. So check those little tiny things in the application package. And then, like I said, work your schedule backwards from that. So as I said to you, you will be assigned a tracking number and you will get evaluations back from the committee members. All agencies have different ways that they communicate with you about their evaluators' comments. For example, NIH will send you lengthy comments, and they'll be pretty detailed, and it will be each evaluator's comments. You don't know who the evaluator was, but evaluator A had these comments, evaluator B had these comments, and you'll get to see the whole thing. Other agencies will just give you a summary from the committee, okay? So look in your instruction package to see how you will get your evaluator's comments. When I had my grant writing business, I would get a call from a client who said, they don't know what they're doing. They missed this, they did that. Then I'd go. So after I learned, we had a policy in my office. I'd tell my secretary, we don't discuss the evaluator's comments for 3 days. You need 3 days to calm down. Because it is emotional. You've invested a lot of energy and time and hope, right, on this. So when you get the evaluator's comments, sometimes you might be frustrated. I always tell people, read them, then put it aside, let your emotions kind of process, right, and then go back and look at it. Because sometimes the evaluator's comments do make more sense from a longer term perspective. So if it says things to you like you didn't have a good enough team, you needed other partners that would know about such and such, you'd look at it and you go, but I did have a guy on there. And if you look through his resume, way down there at the bottom, it says that he has done this and this. So you can get very emotional about it. So sometimes you have to, sort of work through the commentator's comments and come to grips with it, okay? And take their comments and go back and rework it. Some of the agencies have what they call standing committees. That means pretty much from year to year, it's the same people. They will alternate. One person retires and another one, but you have a consistent group. Other agencies use a different group every time. So sometimes it was that particular group. That's just how they looked at it. And you can resubmit the next time and you'd get completely different comments, okay? Sometimes it's also the competition that you've got at that particular time. So let me give you an example from the old days. I remember when I was at NSF one day, it just so happens that when I was there visiting them, that it was a proposal due date. And this was the old days when we had to submit paper proposals. So the program manager at NSF, he says to me, hey kiddo, he always called me kiddo, hey kiddo, do you want to see how we process our SBIR proposals? Sure. So he takes me over to an old gymnasium. And they would literally put up 3x5 cards with the topic number on it. And then they would stack all of them as they came in stacks. I never forgot that visual. That's your competition. Some of them, there were 4 or 5 stacks, and some only had 2 proposals. So your evaluator's comments also depend upon the competition that you have against you, which you don't know about. And so a perfectly good proposal that should be funded won't be funded because there was 25 others. So the next time around, it might be a whole different. So it's a competition, okay? So don't give up. That's the reason why we tell you that. Don't give up, because it could be a different committee, it could be different competition. Themes can change, okay? We had the hardest time trying to get any of the other agencies to take on medical topics. If you had a medical technology, all you could do is submit to NIH. But then we had the war, and DoD started having medical topics about traumatic brain issues, wounded warrior programs, all of that. So then now DoD was a very viable alternative rather than going through the scrutiny of NIH for biomedical. Some of the agencies years ago used to think, oh, the only agency who should handle cybersecurity and IT would be Homeland Security. That's their thing. But now you're seeing DoD have topics in it, and National Science Foundation having topics in it. So shop your agencies. And don't submit to just one agency and then sit and wait and hold on to hope, okay? Because it's a lottery in some respects, okay? You increase your odds by doing a high-quality proposal and understanding things that you learned today in the workshop and you will learn on your own. So you can increase your odds. But it is what it is. So shop the different agencies, keep applying and learning each time. Take the comments back from your debriefing and do resubmissions. Remember, I told you, generally 1 in 4, okay? But sometimes it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether it's 1 in 8. If you got funded, you hit pay dirt, okay? So that's all, and that's all it takes is that one yes, right? And you're off and running. And you know why you're off and running? Because you're small businesses and you've already proven you know how to use this program, you know what you're doing. The average small business that is funded in a phase 1 here leverages for dollar to dollar, for every $1 of SBIR money, they leverage $7. For every 1 employee they started off with in an SBIR, on average, they generate 4 more jobs. Okay? That's the reason why the government wanted this program. A set-aside program that creates a level playing field for small businesses to only compete with other small businesses. You don't have to compete with the big prime contractors. You don't have to compete against the big pharmaceutical companies. Only other small businesses like yourself. They give you a little bit of money, a little bit of time. They test you and see what your mettle is. And small businesses are the winners. They do this. This program has been around for 30 years. I can tell you I know of at least 8 instances when it was on the chopping block, when the government wanted to get rid of it. We don't need it anymore. Small businesses have other sources. It always goes up to the wire and is pulled back from being eliminated because of the results that the small businesses give. The government gives you a little bit of money, and boy, oh boy, do you guys know how to run with it. So run with it. Take advantage of this program. No cash match, no equity given up, no loans, no debt to pay back. All you got to do is figure out what they want, come up with a good idea, put together a good team, figure out this writing process and submission process, keep trying, you're there. You're there. So I'm around if you've got any other questions. I thank you for being a great audience today. You're very patient with me. Thank you.